Hello and welcome to 20 Good Summers, or welcome back to 20 Good Summers if you are a part of our elite cocktail party
of devoted listeners. It doesn't have to be that. I just said that one time and you liked it.
I like it. And I am Paulina Forskova, and this here is a guy I think I'm about to marry.
Jeff Greenstein. I mean, I hope.
Oh, God, it's getting really close.
How far away is it, darling?
It's 2 weeks before we leave, and it's 2 weeks before we leave, and while we also have to pack for Europe, pack for all the movie premieres that are going to be happening with my Czech movie,
and leave our apartment forever,
and leave my apartment forever. I'm trying to. Obviously, there's a lot of positive about this because it is, when we come back, we will, as a traditional married old couple, well, young couple, we're coming back and we're starting life from zero.
Yeah.
I mean, how exciting is that?
It is exciting. It's not quite what we intended to do.
It's also a little more exciting than I wanted it to be.
Let me ask you this, just as a thought experiment. Would you have preferred just to come back and pick up where we left off and then gradually make the changes that married couples make?
Well, yeah. I don't know how many people want to get married and then just completely throw everything up in the air and come back from the honeymoon and go, so now what? Although, I think when you're 20, when you're 19, that sounds absolutely viable, because why not?
Yeah, well, there is something very traditional about it. Like in all the old movies, they drive off in the car with the tissues and the cans, and
they will have sex for the first time that night.
They'll have sex for the first time, and then they'll come back to the new home that George Bailey found in, Bailey Park.
Yeah, well, I guess Bailey Park is where we're going to be.
Exactly. Wow. So this is, we promised after last week's episode, which is an odd one.
Yep. It was a little bit of an oddball, but thank you all so very much for writing in, and just sort of, we've got a lot of letters from people that were sort of, I guess, supporting you in, hey, Jeff, you're entitled to your life.
It was nice,
and you have not been disrespectful. And this lady obviously was.
It was a sensitive spot.
It was a sensitive spot, which
fair.
She admitted. So, I thought that was, cool. But it was something that was laying heavily on you as somebody who is not used to being a public figure. Right. And I think it takes my darling Jeff here a little bit more time to sort of process the things that to me are just like every day.
Second nature, because you've grown accustomed to conducting some of your life in public for a very long time.
For a very long time. And I'm perfectly aware that I have, even when I think I have privacy, I don't have privacy.
Yeah.
Sometimes that is very anxiety causing. And then at other times, it's sort of, actually the worst. I think this was Christy Brinkley said this, which I thought was kind of hilarious and true. Although, I mean, I don't know how many people can relate to this, but she said something about being famous and rich is, fantastic. Being rich is great. Being famous and poor really sucks. And it's true, because people who have an element of public life or fame usually have enough money to retract into their little bubbles. And they can shut everybody else out so that they can have some privacy. If you are well-known, famous, public, but you don't have any money to shut them out, well, then you get the worst of all worlds.
Worst of all, yeah, that makes sense.
So anyway, and that was just to say that you're, I'm used to not having privacy. I can't count on, I can go to the supermarket right here in the country and absolutely nobody will know me for years. And then that one time when I go to the supermarket and, spill something on myself, there will be that one person that catches it on a phone and puts it online. So that thing of you never really quite know when you're being watched and when you're not being watched is not entirely comfortable. and you are getting you're getting first
Eh,
hand
I mean,
account on what it's like, and it's not
it's
sometimes
alarming.
sometimes it's incredibly wonderful, isn't it, when we were walking down the street in New York
Okay,
and
let's talk about the wonderful part.
yes,
This is
let's.
a little bit, this episode is a little bit about this. So I don't think it's entirely untoward to talk about this a little bit.
Okay.
Um, people, well, at the very beginning of our relationship, particularly because we took a trip to Europe near the beginning of our relationship, we went to the Czech Republic. When P was in the Czech Republic, I used to compare the reaction she got to as if people were seeing Snow White on the streets of Prague. Like it was like seeing a figure out of the mythology of the country suddenly materialize in real life on a street corner. And so Pragians, Czechians would react with astonishment and delight, like, oh my God, you're real. So it was very amusing to me and delightful to see how that would play out. What happened over time is I became part of your story. And so people would see us together. And then they would say, oh my God, it's you guys, which
Yeah.
was funny. This happened actually about a block from our
I
apartment.
remember the first
Yeah.
time this happened to you when a lovely woman sort of just stopped you walking down the street and said, "Oh my God, I know you. You're
Yeah.
Jeff."
Well, this was the third phase, which was I was actually at my dentist on the Upper East
Oh, that's
Side
right.
by myself. And a woman said, I know you, you're his boyfriend. And I was like, that was when it kind of crossed some threshold because I mean, I am a weird looking guy. So, and I'm incredibly tall. So I do, I guess, stand out to a certain extent. But being recognized apart from you was very strange. Very strange. And I am not
But you were
accustomed.
elated. You came home and you were
It was
so
delightful. It
happy
was delightful. It's
because she was
delightful.
also very
She was
nice.
very nice. And this is the thing I want to say more than anything. Everyone is nice.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is nice. No one has ever come up to us and been mean. People
No,
can be mean online and that's fine. I'm whatever, as I said. I'm used to dealing with trolls online. That's totally fine. I find it like a comedy writing prompt. It's totally delightful. I don't mind that. But no one has ever been mean in person. People
no.
who come up to us are talk about like, oh my God, you seem so happy. You give me hope. You make me feel like there might be somebody out there for me. You know, I'm P's age and I'm looking for love and I'm hoping I can find what you guys have found. Am I kind of getting it right?
Yes, there's a lot of goodwill, and the women that approach me or approach us um, are it's such a it feels like such an honor. It
Yeah, it
feels
does.
like we have somehow entered your life as friends, and you know us, and you just and when you stop to say hi, just so you know, we both really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's it's about 40 years from when I used to walk down the street and a guy, would, or guys would do the, hey, Sports Illustrated. Yeah, you hot. Don't miss those days at all. Not even a little bit. In fact, I think the last guy that did that, I think we were on bicycles.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I'm sorry, but that's so embarrassing for him. Not me, I don't really care.
He's living in
But
the past.
yeah, he talk about living in the past. I'm like, well, you're giving away your age there, sir. But anyway, that's the point of this sort of pre-conversation is
Yes.
that I wanted to lead this into talking about getting married in the last
Third act.
in the last third, in the beginning of the last third
Yes.
act, or for that matter, the middle. My mom and my Papa Joe got married when they were 73 and 72 respectively, in probably one of the most beautiful weddings,
Yeah.
if not the most beautiful wedding
Yeah,
that
you've always
I've ever
said it
been
was the
to.
happiest, most joyful, most beautiful wedding.
It was so amazing, and it was two people in their 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, how great
Yeah, what a
is
wonderful
that?
example for us.
Yeah.
But wait, I just want to round out why we started this way. We have a slight awareness, or at least I do, that this is a wedding that it's actually a fairly small wedding and it is family and friends, but then there is an element of it that's gonna be public. You have explained to me, hard on the heels of our wedding, we are going to the Czech Republic because you have this movie premiere, and we're doing something like 10 days of events in association with this movie that you shot last year in the Czech Republic, your first Czech language movie. I'm very excited about it. I think it's great. And all the people associated with it are exceptional, had a great time in Prague, et cetera, et cetera. But what I keep having to remind myself is, remember that Snow White thing I said? So now I get to be Prince
Prince Charming.
Charming, like moving through the Czech Republic with his new bride, Snow White. And I know it's going to be a big deal when we're on the red carpet together. And that can't not happen. That is happening. Whether I like it or not,
Yeah.
it's happening that way. And it's part of the pageantry of our wedding. It just is. I'm marrying a famous person, a person who in the Czech Republic is a national treasure. So what? You made a little face.
National treasure.
You are. No, you and Martina Navratilova.
Yes.
And Václav Havel, and let's see.
Well,
Well, you and Martina are still around.
yes, exactly.
I'm sure there are hockey players I'm leaving off the list.
Yeah, I'm sure, but I don't know hockey.
Okay.
Ivan Lendl.
Ivan Lendl, yes. Anyway, so that's why I wanted to start with this idea of kind of, we are living a bit of this in public, which makes it different than any other wedding I've had.
Oh, yeah. Well,
so-
we both just had one
Yeah.
respectively.
Right.
And you know what?
Yes, go ahead.
That sort of leads into
There you go.
our listeners' emails.
Oh, are we
Well,
going right to our
yeah,
listeners'
let's,
emails?
Let's go right to it, because I find this I find that this is such a good question.
Yes. All right. Yes.
And the question,
Here it is.
here it is. And this question comes from Sandra.
Yes, go for it.
And she says, "Hi, JMP," which I kind of like. It's like,
I know, I like that.
yeah, we could be P&J too.
P&J's fine. I think of us as P&J because ladies first.
Oh, thank you. Also peanut butter and jelly.
Yes.
Hi, JMP. I am curious why you want to get married. Why not just live together? And how does marriage affect your finances? I think that is the reason many couples who have found love later in life often don't get married, because of financial ramifications. And then she goes on to say that she's very pro-marriage, but she wants to know our perspective on it. Yeah, that's a door
It's
slamming
windy.
shut in the
It's windy.
wind.
Don't worry
Our
about it.
dog is walking around.
Yes.
But so the question is, why get married now? How will it affect our finances? And this is why a lot of later in life couples probably don't want to necessarily merge.
I'm afraid we're going to have to go all the way back to our earliest conversations because we talked about this. Okay. And I know we've touched on this briefly in prior episodes, so forgive us if it's come across as repetitive, but in our earliest conversations, we talked about the fact that we had been married each for a long time. There were good things about the marriages, and there were not so good things about the marriage. We had not lost faith in the institution.
Oh, I have.
All right, let's talk about it.
What
See?
do you mean?
Perfect.
The institution? Who wants to be in an institution? Thank you very much.
No,
I
but-
agree with what Cher used to.
All right.
Like what Cher, I was asked about what she thought of the institution of marriage. She was like, "Who the hell wants to live in an institution?" I'm
Oh.
kind of with her on that.
Do you see all if the camera shakes, it's because of the wind, guys. Let's start there. When we had that conversation 3.5 years ago about our feelings about marriage, okay, again, this is our second or third conversation after connecting on a dating app. We're talking on FaceTime. We're probably sipping tea at this point because we had not made the progression to alcoholic beverages yet. What had you lost faith in the institution of marriage?
Absolutely. After my husband and I separated, and obviously we never got to get a divorce, because he died, I never wanted to get married again. And in fact, I was very staunchly set against it. I thought I would love to find a companion again. I would love to have another partnership, but I did that Scarlett O'Hara thing. I will never get married again. What she said.
Well, she said, "I'll never go hungry again."
I'll
But
never
yeah,
go hungry again.
But
yes.
now, okay, wait. Let's probe this for a bit. Was it because of the painful aspects of the dissolution of that marriage that caused you to lose faith in the institution altogether?
Well, it yes, and also because, of course, I did one of those, as we have mentioned on the podcast before, I did the classic thing of marrying very young, not minding where the money went, how the money was distributed, and then found out 30 years later, that my husband, had more say about the money than I did, and that I hadn't paid attention. And it seemed very much like marriage is was good for a guy and not so much for a woman. Now, also, you got married in California, I got married in New York. In New York, when there's a dispute about
Yes.
what belongs to whom, the wife will get one third, not a half, unlike
Oh,
California.
interesting.
So, not so great, because
Yes.
30 years of marriage, one feels that might be a little unfair, especially when one has made a large amount of money
Okay,
themselves.
so everything you're saying about the disillusionment you felt
Mm.
was about the financial arrangement, the corporation.
It was the institution of
Right, but the
marriage.
institution meaning the
Meaning,
legal and financial
correct.
aspects of a marriage were what soured you on it. The
Be
fact that those things had curdled was
Yes,
made you cynical about it.
absolutely.
Can I push
And
those to the side of what?
yes, but okay, sure.
Can I push those to the side of the table and talk about the romantic aspect?
Okay.
How did that completely swamp any feelings you might have had about the romantic aspect of marriage?
Of course, because then when you find out that financially, and every other way, marriage seems to be such um what would you call it? Unequal.
Yeah, it's disadvantageous for the woman. That's what you're saying.
Thank
Yes.
you. Well, that takes the romance right out of it, doesn't it? I mean, if like otherwise you'd be an idiot. You
All right.
you actually learn something like, oh, marriage is not advantageous to a woman. It seems to be
But
advantageous
you
to a
keep
man.
swerving into the
Well,
left lane,
but
which is all about the
romance,
logical and the
yes.
financial and the legal component.
And I know what you're asking
Yeah, you
because
do
you
know.
are a self-proclaimed romantic, albeit I would say a sentimentalist rather than a
All right,
romantic.
let's just,
But
well, we might as well look. We might as well talk about this distinction while we're at it.
mhm,
Are you a romantic?
I think that I I think I mm, damn, wait, am I?
I can't believe you're even, we've talked about this so much. What are you
Am
hesitating
I?
over?
Well,
I'm not going to answer for you.
now I'm starting to think maybe I'm more pragmatic than I am romantic these days. Because I don't feel like I think being romantic is in part um completely impractical.
So for you, romance, and there's no value judgment on impractical. I mean, some people love the fact that romance is impractical, that it's insane and absurd and improbable, right? That's a lot of the
And
adjectives that we
yes,
use.
and dramatic.
And dramatic.
And
And yes.
the story, the when there's a story, there's always a story in romance, but a story can't exist unless there's a great deal of tension. So romance always it's kind of a sharpened blade upon which you
All right.
balance.
So let's just stipulate then that at the time we were having this conversation, at the beginning of the relationship, you had gone sour on the institution and the romance had been squeezed out of it by a lot of pragmatic considerations. Am I
You are so right on. I'm like, damn, it took me like 10 minutes to try to get
No, no, no,
to,
no,
to
it's
the
fine.
point.
It's
But
fine.
yes, that is exactly how I felt about marriage. Now, how did you feel about marriage when we met?
Well, here's the thing. It's interesting. Now, this happened, the events I'm about to describe happened actually a few years before you and I met.
Uh-huh.
Around not long after the dissolution of my marriage, I and a friend of mine collaborated on another in a never-ending series of attempts by network television to remake the classic sitcom The Honeymooners. Do you remember this?
Yes, of course.
Jackie Gleason, it's one of the prototypical sitcoms, and there have been many, many attempts over the years to remake it. My friend and I had a, had a take on how to do it. And we were in the offices of the CBS Broadcasting Corporation pitching the show. And the executive asked me, knowing that I had only been, I don't even think my divorce had been finalized yet. I had been separated for a few months at this point. And the executive asked me, would you ever get married again? And I was like, sure. And my friend practically fell off his chair because he knew that it had been very, very difficult in the waning years of the marriage and that the breakup had been very, very difficult. And he was astonished to learn that I would try again.
Wow.
Now, I will say this. Fast forward 3 years to when you and I had connected. And I think a lot of the, I don't know what the right word is. A lot of the motivation, well, not even the romance. It seemed, I will tell you this. Okay. I had dated a bit, had a girlfriend for a couple of years. She very, very much wanted to get married, I think, because she wanted the stability and so forth. There were many things she wanted that she had not had that she thought marriage to me would afford her. Is that a fair way of
That's a very nice way of saying
describing
it.
And it didn't work out. And I really did not see that as a relationship that could go the distance. And ultimately we broke up. So by the time you and I met, and some of this goes to sort of my generalized, I'm not a cynic, but my generalized dubiousness about whether I was ever going to meet the kind of partner that I would want to have a marriage with. So when I said to you in that early conversation,
Yes, like probably
second conversation, I'm not looking to get married. It wasn't that I had let go of the romantic ideals that marriage always represented to me. It was that I had grown pragmatic about the chances of finding a person like that and wanting to forge a partnership with them like that. Does that make sense?
Well, knowing you, of course it makes sense. I know that this is exactly how you think, but you presented when we first met and you said, you asked me about marriage and I said, oh, absolutely not. No, never, ever, ever. And I have gotten better at learning never to say never, because that seems to be like, that's the one that you always pay for. And I said, what about you? And you said, oh yeah, no, totally not in the market to get married. And I thought, oh, perfect. And so we bobbed along for a year.
We bobbed along. Remember, guys, I mean, we've spoken of this. I don't want to reprise the whole business, how we met and courted, but it was a long distance thing at first. There's a million reasons why I, at the outset, thought, oh, I'm just going to make an excellent new friend. I think a life-changing romance was aborning? No, I did not think a life-changing romance was aborning, but within a few months, it started to look like one was. And so all of these doors that I had previously closed, I began to open a crack and think, well, maybe. Now you must have gone through something kind of similar. Let's hear it.
Well, no. Before we go there.
Yes.
I want to go straight to the point. When did you change your mind about marriage? When did you change your mind from,
I fell in love with the most extraordinary woman I've ever met. I fell in love with a woman who was inexhaustibly fascinating, who was the perfect partner for me in every respect, who is my equal, who is a great traveling buddy, who is a vicious cribbage competitor. We are compatible. We have so much joy in so many ways that I thought, oh, I've found her. I've found her. If anyone was ever going to step under that chuppah with me, this would be the gal.
Do I know her?
Yes, you've met her. So, excuse me. So it was entirely, that transformation was wrought by the depth of my feelings for you, the life we were forging together. And I started to see that maybe uh, this marriage, if we both wanted one, could be different than the
But
last.
why?
Very different than
Yes,
the last.
but
Yes.
what does marriage mean
Why am
to
I
you?
answering first?
Because I'm asking first. That's how that's how our podcast goes. We just roll with it.
All right. I mean,
The wind and
the
the
wind and
sudden
the
clouds
possible rain
and the possible rainstorm and Ludwig.
What does it mean to me?
What does marriage
well,
mean to you?
As you alluded, I think of myself as a romantic. And to me, marriage is, I mean, in the most traditional sense, it is presenting yourself to the community as a couple, like in a way that isn't like, here's my latest, but here is someone who I am. We are merging our families. We are merging our homes. We are building a life together for as long as we both shall live. I take all these sorts of commitments really, really seriously. And the fact that the first time I did this foundered did not shake my faith in the institution. It shook my faith in myself, and it shook my faith in my choosing ability. But it didn't. Does it make sense? Does that make sense?
Well,
It didn't
yes.
tarnish my belief that marriage is a sacred institution that I fiercely believe in.
Do you think that there's any piece of that could be because you're a man?
What do you mean?
Well,
Because all the advantages devolved to me?
well, I mean, under California
Not under
law,
California
not so
law.
much.
No, as a matter of fact, you could make a case that California law is different. Everything's 50-50. There's a lot of other codicils that a lot of men are troubled by. That's all I'm going to say. But even that didn't tarnish my feelings about the institution. Wait, you're saying, is it easier for me to believe in such things because I'm a man?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Aren't most older men actually wanting to stay footloose and date as much as they want?
Well,
They're not looking to get married.
No, only the assholes in our business, but not regular guys. I think
Regular guys of 60?
yeah, I think, and again, this
Well,
is
you
like out of
dated
my.
a lot. Did the 60-year-old men that you dated, were they eager to get married again?
There were a lot of men that were eager to get married again, and I think those were the men that had been in long-term marriages, and they were sort of blindsided by their wives going, you know what, I've had it with you, and they were sort of eager to enter into a new relationship because I think they felt like the woman, like they. I'm so sorry for saying this, guys. This is because this is being very uh and uh, being very
What? Cynical?
yes, but also
Caustic?
no, not
Ungenerous?
no.
Oh,
Oh, not complete brain fart.
it's okay.
I'm generalizing.
Oh, you're generalizing. Oh.
Yes, I'm really generalizing here, but if the guy was a widower,
Yeah.
he even more so like would sort of jump on the opportunity to be with a woman again because they were sort of used to being taken care of, quite frankly.
Taken care of.
Yes,
That's
the woman
interesting.
was the one who sort of set the
see what you're
their
saying.
social life.
I see what you're saying.
It's not necessarily that she was feeding him, but she provided the world in which he could she was home. Like home is equated with the woman.
It's interesting that you would. So you're saying when you say, "Do you believe in all these things because you're a man?" You're saying you're proceeding from the premise that the social contract favors the man.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of men would say, "No, it doesn't. You, as a man, you're tasked with being the provider more often than not." And
yes, and this is true when you're younger, but when you meet a woman in her 50s and 60s who has a career or who's had a pretty good career, a lot of us are, our buying power is at its max, and therefore we don't really need your money, and we might not want to wash your socks.
Yeah, you might not want to wash your socks. Yes, that's true. That's true.
Anyway.
Well, you know what? You're pointing out, and then I'm going to throw the question back to you. You're pointing out that a marriage at this point in life is vastly different.
Mhm.
All right. You got married at 19. I got married at 27. Am I right about that? You got married at 22. You
23.
you got married at
I
23.
met him
I
at
got married at
19.
27. You had been in that relationship for 4 years. I had been in my relationship for about almost 2 years. It was a very different point in the arc of our careers,
Yes.
a very different point in the arc of our lives. And it was for different reasons. Like you wanted kids, I wanted kids. You wanted to build a home, I wanted to build a home. Like these are the kinds of kind of axioms by which marriages are built when you're in your 20s. Okay. When you would choose to embark on a marriage at our age, you're looking for very different stuff.
Well, yeah, we are not going to be having children together. I'm not sure if you knew.
We're going to try, though. We're going to keep trying. This is the joke I always make to people.
We're going to keep
We're
trying.
trying.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've said what it means to me. So what? Well,
But no, you
what?
haven't
Yes, I
really.
have.
Okay. So what I'm taking away from this, and what I actually find very dear, and what puts a smile on my face, is that your first answer to what marriage means to you is that you are you're sort of legalizing this team thing, like for everyone to see you as a team. It also is a little possessive, I will point
Of
out.
course it is.
She's mine,
And
guys.
he's mine.
Yeah,
And he's mine.
they belong together, and there's no when you say, "Oh, I'm gonna bring my boyfriend,"
I know it sounds unserious.
yeah,
We've run into this a
mhm.
lot. I'm going to bring my boyfriend sounds really unserious,
Mhm.
particularly when you're 58.
Yeah.
It's like it
My
sounds right.
husband, that sounds
Weighty.
yes.
Partner sounds gay.
Well, partner, you never know if it's a
You never
business
know.
partner or a gay partner or
Yes.
whatever. Yes.
I
So
used to joke back when we were boyfriend and girlfriend, and there was one point where you were in zone 1 to board,
mhm.
and I was in zone 2, and I wanted to board with you, and so I came up with this phrase that I swore I was going to say to the gate agent when we got to the front. I'd
It's
say,
real not funny.
"You guys be the judge." I said, "I swore a sacred oath to murder anyone who came between us."
And he's been laughing at it ever since.
I find that
by
very.
himself.
I mean, I never actually did it, guys, because I'm a writer. I'm gutless. Anyway, go ahead. You were in the midst of making a point that it's possessive. You're saying there's something possessive about it, but I would argue the possessiveness goes in both directions.
Does it?
I landed that guy. I landed that girl. She belongs to me. He belongs to me. Those things are said in both directions. We were just watching a Jane Austen adaptation.
Mhm.
And the idea of owning that man, possessing that man, definitely Austen's women saw themselves as taking possession of the man as much as they were being possessed.
I mean, well, for the Austen era, marriage. Remember, you either are married or you're miserable. Like
Yes,
those were
yes.
your two choices in life.
Yes.
I mean, marriage was everything.
Yes.
To a certain class of woman, you could not be married, because if you were married, you'd be a spinster, and then you would be the object of everybody's pity, and you'd never have a home.
Right.
You'd be
All
shuffled from
true.
place to place. I mean, yeah, things that so marriage was incredibly important for your social standing. We thank God times have changed, and we are not quite yet back in Austen's time. Yep.
Though
Though we're
some of that
heading,
persists.
some
Some of it
persists.
persists.
But I think when somebody asks, why get married now? I think that's a really good question.
But
because
you haven't answered the same question you put to me yet.
well, that's because you didn't put the question to me.
I was in the middle of doing it, and then you've deflected it back, claiming I hadn't answered it yet.
Oh, okay.
May I ask you that question before we move
darling.
further? Okay. What does marriage mean to you? Now, what does it mean then and now? That's what I'm
See,
interested about.
it's a good difference. What marriage meant to me when I was 23 and I was marrying my husband was marriage meant my future, my nest building. This was going to be, I was going to spend the rest of my life with this man. We were going to have more children together, because of course he already had a bunch. But we were going to, it was going to be a sort of a proclamation to the world
Yeah.
that we belong together.
Yeah.
That is what it meant at 23. At 61.
Okay, wait. Before you go, sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt, okay? Because I really do want to hear the end of that sentence. But you asked me, at what point did it change? And
Mhm.
I did answer that question. At what point, I think this is even more salient because you're saying you were super dead set against this. At what point did it change? What point did you start to think, I might want to marry this guy? I might want marriage again.
Well, maybe next week. I'm still hoping it'll come around. Uh, when I'm going, you know this,
I
and
do, but
I'm
I
going,
want,
and I am,
they don't
and
know.
I am, but I'm going to be fiercely honest about this. I love you and I adore you, and I don't want to spend my life with anybody else. Like I said, you are the last man for me. If if you happen to trip and break your neck and it's the end of Jeff, I will only go with ladies from there and on. No more
Yeah,
men for me.
yeah. You've just created a lesbian murder ring, but that's fine. That's totally fine. It's okay, but keep going.
Um anyway, so yes, you are my man. You are the man. Um But I did not really want to get married, and I didn't even want to get married when you asked me to get married. I wanted to get engaged.
Yeah, well, we had a good long engagement.
I
You
didn't
wanted to be asked. This is what
I
I'm trying to
wanted to
pry
be
out of you.
asked. I wanted to be
You
asked
wanted to. I don't want
to
to. I do not.
marry.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but because we have had this conversation, but there was a decided shift. I don't know exactly when it occurred, but you went from being dead set against this
Mhm.
to actually wanting it, to actually wanting
Well,
me
wait,
to what? Yes.
not to wanting to be married, but wanting to be asked. And those two things are very different to me,
Why?
and they're
I love
still
this.
very
I
different to
love
me.
it. Please explain why they're different.
Well, okay. Well, and again, as you know, I would be absolutely happy to be engaged for the next 20 years.
Right.
Yes. I wanted to be asked because I felt in our relationship I had chosen you. I was
Yeah.
being a modern woman. I was being a Swedish woman. I sort of fished for you. I got you. Um, I seduced you. I brought you home. Um, and And at this point, it sadly turns slightly Jane Austenish, where I felt like I wanted to be chosen by you. I wanted to have the proof that you also chose me, not just that you acquiesced to my
To your
fervor,
entreaties. That's
but
right. That
that you
I said, oh,
that
okay, you can have me.
yes, but that you
Yeah.
actually was an active participant in our relationship.
Yes, and I understand that, but that is about, I mean, to be really reductive about this, that is about one moment that you
Mm-hmm.
wanted.
Mm-hmm.
You wanted
Mm-hmm.
me
Mm-hmm.
to claim you,
Mm-hmm.
to ask you, to make myself vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
to the possibility you
Remember?
might say no.
Because when we were talking about
Yes.
asking, about engagement, and we weren't really talking about marriage so much as we were talking about
Yes.
the engagement factor. And you said to me at one point, we were sitting in the
I
car on our
remember this
way
quite vividly.
here,
Yes.
and you stepped on the brakes in front of a red light,
Green.
green light. That's right.
Yes.
Um, but you said, um, you were only going to ask me if you knew I was going to say yes.
Yeah, I know. And you
That was so
really hated
fucking
that.
annoying.
Yeah,
Like,
you
what's
really
the
hated that.
point of that? Well, what's the point of it? If you know I say yes, then there's no risk involved. And if there's no risk involved, then it's not a question, is it?
The thing, okay, I'm going to put this to our elite cocktail party of devoted listeners because at the time, I believed that one should have a fairly confident feeling that the person you're asking is going to say yes. But you, and I've come around to your point of view on this. Don't you love when I say you're right?
Yeah.
I've come around to your point of view on this because there needs to be an element of risk. You have to be vulnerable. You have to put yourself out there.
That's what
You have
vulnerability
to
is.
ask without the assurance because otherwise you've already gotten the assurance and there's no
question.
there's no electricity in
And
the
there's no courage required.
yeah, there's no courage and courage is important to you.
I find courage very hot.
Yes. Now, I had a different set of priorities and now we're sort of slouching into explaining how we got engaged. Do we want to do that?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm still trying to answer the question,
Yeah, what is it?
why
Why
get
get married?
married now?
Okay.
And also, what about finances? Because obviously I got burned big time and you got burned
I did.
California
I
style.
got burned California style, which is no joke. Half the money walked out the door and I'm still paying.
Yep, for the rest of your life.
Right. That's
Mhm.
California style. So it's not, I mean, from a purely financial standpoint, it's not a great
It
investment.
really isn't.
So I'll put it to you first. This is great because I get to ask you this one first. From a financial standpoint, why do it?
Mm. From a financial standpoint, it would be an absolute no. Except this time, uh, as soon as we decided that we were actually going to go ahead with this crazy plan, I said prenup, and you said yes, of
Yes,
course.
absolutely. And I do think that, and this was all covered in great depth in our episode about money, we came into this as equals. We
Mm.
came in equally set, which I think also made it. I mean, when we talk about like a prenup, that means we're going to walk out with everything we came in with, which is, at the time we started this relationship was roughly commensurate. So
Yes.
it did not feel asymmetrical. And I had been in many relationships that were asymmetrical,
Right.
where I felt like I was entirely the provider and that it was all on me. And I mean, again, we covered all this in a prior episode,
Mm-hmm.
but of course,
Yes.
that was never an issue. So you felt, from a financial standpoint, that you were protected from the catastrophic outcome that you previously experienced, and so do I.
By
So
paying attention, knowing what my money situation is, and actually writing a prenup. When
yeah,
my husband and I got married, everybody was nudging us to a prenup.
yep,
And my husband said, absolutely not. If we sign a
I
prenup,
know.
that's like signing a piece of paper that we already are expecting to
I
fail.
know, and I think for a lot of couples, and I was in this camp when I got married, it sounds like you're basically planning your exit
Yes,
before you
exactly.
even
And it
enter.
sounds terribly unromantic.
It
And when you're
does.
19 or
Yeah,
20 or
you want the
23,
romance.
well, like you have your expectations of your marriage is that, oh, this will absolutely be
It
forever.
is forever because we
And
say it's forever.
yes, and he will always love me, and I like he loves me now, and I will always love him, and so you can't comprehend that
That it
things.
could ever go wrong.
Yeah, just like you can't comprehend death at that point in your life until you get a little more seasoned, and then you start understanding it.
Now, can I just mention a few real obvious things that are, baked into the question of finances and so forth?
Yeah, what?
Okay, here come a few of them. Uh, Building a home together,
Mm.
you have certain advantages as a team that you don't as a solo artist, right? That's an advantage. There are really boring tax advantages. The U.S. tax system rewards married couples.
Yes.
It rewards families. So and in addition, I have some very nice insurance through the Writers Guild. You have some very nice
Yes,
insurance.
exactly. I don't need the
And
fucking
I
insurance.
know you're going to be trading one for another, but there are certain, and then this is not financial, but this is something, this is one of the reasons gay marriage became important. We are entering into the final third,
Mhm.
right? Which means that key decisions about health care, about end of life care, which is so decidedly unromantic, but are going to be decisions that we put in each other's hands.
Darling,
And what?
the only reason I'm marrying you is so that I have the right to unplug you.
I mean,
And here's the other crazy thing. To me,
the way,
it sounds
that's-
really romantic.
that's such a great pull quote. Please go ahead. The only reason I'm marrying you is so I have the right to unplug you. Wow. Okay.
And so you have the right to unplug
Unplug you.
me.
There you go. Thank you.
But to me, well, the thing about that is that probably sounds really horrible when you're 20 or 30. But you know what? It sounds really
Oh.
romantic to me now. It's not. It actually sounds
It-
incredibly. I mean, it's like Kathy and Heathcliff. I mean, there is death involved, and it's
Yes.
very dramatic, and you're giving me the power
Well,
to
Yeah,
unplug
I
you
mean,
or leave you plugged in. I mean,
you are
that's
putting
love.
yourself. It is, and boy, is this dark. It's super dark. But the
Hello
fact
and welcome
is,
to the mind of an Eastern
I
European.
know exactly. But you are putting
Yes,
your ultimate faith, your ultimate fate, in the hands of your partner,
of that person.
and that is something you can't really do without getting married in this country. Like decisions about end of life care, usually, I mean, it's gotten easier in the wake of gay marriage, but those are usually not afforded to domestic partners. It is something that has to be very explicitly outlined, and it's not always abided by. I'm sure I'm going to get a million corrections on this, so bring them on.
And
But the fact is that it greases the skids. It makes it a lot easier.
it makes it
It just
easier.
does.
It makes it
You don't have
easier.
to explain down at the nurse's station, oh, I'm her boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
You say,
But we've lived together for X amount of time,
yeah,
so actually I do have the right. And here I have a sworn statement that I have apostilled,
a word we know way too well.
and we will
Well,
talk
we'll get
about.
to
They
that
will
for
talk about
sure.
this in next week's episode, where we are
About
going
the
to get
mechanics?
the mechanics of
Yeah.
getting married at our age, and also getting married in a destination wedding.
Yes.
And all of the fun stuff, wedding dress, although I can't say too much about it.
No.
But all of that fun stuff we will share.
We're going to
with
handle
you.
next time. But
this is more about
the pragmatic business.
the pragmatic, and also the question why.
Why?
Did
we? Okay, but wait. Okay, so
I mean, I stated fairly clearly why I'm marrying you.
yeah,
What does marriage mean to me at this age? This is the part we've
yes,
skipped so far.
yeah, that's what we're coming back to. Here we go.
What marriage means to me now, besides having the power of life and death over you eventually down the line.
Look at the grin. Yes. Oh my God. I haven't seen her grin this much since she beat me at cribbage last night. Yes. I'm going to post that video, by the way.
You don't. What it means to me now is it's like a small part of what it used to mean. But it's very much similar to yours. Again, to me, it's not so much about God or the universe. I'm not particularly religious. I might be a little woo-woo. But to me, it's gathering the people that you love the most around you. So our children, our brothers, sisters, my parents, our best friends, like really people that really have spent, their love on us, on me, on you, and vice versa. And in front of those people, I will make a promise to stay with you, for better or for worse. And that's what marriage is to me, is promising the people that matter the most to me that this is my guy.
I just got very emotional. All right. We'll cut all that out.
And no worry, well, that was cute.
I don't even know what to say after that.
Well,
I mean, that's what it means. That is what it
That's
means.
what it means
That is
to me
what it
now.
means.
And the finance part of it, I am really making sure to be taking care of the finance part in advance. We've been very open about speaking.
Yep, that's right.
As we said in our episode about finances, we try to be as open about talking about finances and the vulnerable bits of like, well, how much are you going to put in? How much am I putting in? Is this fair? Or is there a percentage? All this kind of silly, unromantic stuff that you now at 60, I find so romantic. I find it so romantic that we can talk about these ugly things.
Isn't that interesting?
These things that, that were like, cobwebs, or like, gross mushrooms growing in damp corners. This is what these conversations used to be. They were so unromantic. And being able to take those very same conversations and actually have them with love and with respect. And sometimes we've gotten a little mad at each other.
Yes.
It doesn't everything is not always smiley and,
Yes.
"Oh, yes, we have" Oh, I agree. Sometimes we have to process it, but to me, the process of it, the talking through it, the navigating it together, it's unbelievably romantic.
I Why do you keep saying things that are so great that I don't know how to respond to them?
I I I didn't know I was, but thank you.
That's very true.
But see,
That's very
here's the
true.
thing,
I completely endorse and echo what you just said. That what was you were talking about how those discussions in advance of your first marriage were seen as so just, gross. And we don't need to talk about that. That's not it,
it's not
or that's
romantic,
not
it's not
us.
pretty, it's not
That's
sexy,
pretty.
we
We
don't
don't need that lives outside of this
exactly.
relationship. The fact that we are seasoned enough
Mm.
to understand that nothing lives outside the relationship. All of these
Yeah,
things,
and gross
the
things like money and death.
money and death, live within the circle of the life we're building together. And the fact that we can, as you said, that we can hash through those things together and talk about them, even though they're thorny and unpleasant at times and contentious at times,
Mm.
that's really beautiful. And it means that the commitment we're making now feels like it has a depth and resonance and a lack of naivete.
Yes. Yes, it
You
feels like I'm
know?
finally building a proper house on a foundation as opposed to just, setting down a shipping cart and drilling
Yeah, I
holes in it.
mean, this is, I guess, one of the themes we return to on this show is we're not naive.
No.
Like romance to me is no longer associated with ideas born of foolishness, youth, and naivete. It
Mm-mm.
actually it's attached to all sorts of ideas about maturity and accountability and like the ability to sustain a thorny and difficult conversation when you feel like running the other way. These are all things that young me could not conceive of. I didn't have the depth or the strength or the experience.
The wisdom, the seasoning, the
Yeah.
seasoning. This is why
Yeah.
this is why our 60s are our best time, you guys. Um, I'm also realizing as we're talking that when when I got married the first time, well, I guess the only time thus far, um, what I wanted was an equal partnership. That is
Mm.
what I was looking for. But then I sort of unwittingly or without really paying attention, um, uh, sunk into a very traditional role, which I didn't think
When
would
you say
suit me.
traditional, what is that? What do you mean by
Well, I
that?
became woman who keeps house. Like
Yeah.
I gave up my career, um,
Wife and mother and
wife, a
homemaker.
mother, homemaker. Yes, my children became, my priority in life. And yeah, my career was over, and my husband, and it was all about sort of supporting my husband. I thought he was going to support me back eventually, but that didn't really quite happen the way that I envisioned. Um, that is not to say that I didn't get exactly what I wanted for many, many years. And
From that relationship.
from that relationship, I did feel very safe with my husband
Cared
for,
for.
yeah, yeah, he treasured me so. And
Yeah.
and he treasured me for a long time, and it was a wonderful feeling.
This is falling out.
Oh, that's what's happening. Oh,
Yeah.
no, I don't think you
And,
can pin it in like that.
well,
No.
it looked a little weird,
Yeah,
and so I felt I didn't mean
thank you.
I didn't
No,
mean to
actually,
break your
that
flow.
that feels a lot better. Um, but what I was gonna say was that the the sort of equality between partners, uh, I guess it wasn't possible with when you're 19 and dating a 40-year-old. That I never stopped to ponder for even a moment. But that is what I feel like I'm getting now, is this equal partnership, of two of and as we have said many times in the episodes, it's about being a team. And
Yeah.
then and then we're gonna put a stamp on being a team, um, a legal stamp, and a stamp for. Oh my God, I'm sorry, you guys that are not watching this on YouTube. My hair looks freaking insane.
Well, now it does. I mean, you just. I actually think your hair looks great, so don't sweat it. But
Okay.
don't pile it on top of your heads like Sally Field in Soap Dish. You're kind of doing well. That's insane.
Yeah, see, I'm telling you,
I
my
mean,
hair, my hair is nuts.
yeah. No, I think it looks great.
Anyway, wait, what were we talking about?
Putting a stamp on it.
Putting a putting a stamp on it. And is that important now? In like, okay, so for example, my mom. Let's just go there for a moment. My mom was married. This is her third marriage to Papa Joe. As far as I'm concerned, it's only by far the only good marriage.
Right.
Her marriage to my dad was, they were like young idiots and they should have never gotten married. Second marriage, I think, was one of convenience because she was trying to make this man that was a wonderful, wonderful guy and my stepdad for a brief time. I think she was trying to. He was coming from the Czech Republic and living in Sweden, so they were doing it legally so that he could stay. He was a really good stepdad. And then my mom always went around sort of saying like marriage means nothing. I would never get married again. I want to be able to send them packing when I get tired of them. And
Yep.
my mother is a very beautiful, very sparkling woman who's never pined for male attention, I don't think, for a second. So when she met Papa Joe and sort of settled down and then decided to marry him, nobody could be more surprised than all the people they invited to their wedding. We were all going like,
yeah,
what?
Yeah.
Her sister, her brother-in-law, like all of our family would just sort of walk around with a glass of champagne and looking slightly like, like
astonished.
like they had been ripped up by a tornado and deposited somewhere else going, I was getting married. How about that? And as you know, she's so happy. They
Oh
are
my God,
such
they
a
are the
happy
greatest
couple.
team. They are a great
They're
team.
such a team. They want the same things out of life. They're both inveterate travelers.
Yes.
They have so much fun together. They love the opera and the arts and they just have so much fun.
They are the prototypical like late in life marriage having the time of their lives, just airing it out with little regard for much beyond their own happiness, which is great.
Well, they deserve it at this point.
They've earned it.
They've earned it and they're living it up. And in some ways they are an example to me of like
me too,
where I would like
I
my life
know. We look at them, they're 10 years ahead of us. It's funny because
actually
what?
little more than 10 years. Oh, you mean marriage wise?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you like to joke that Papa Joe and I are the same generation.
I do like to joke about it because it's funny.
And because he's at the leading edge of the baby boom and I'm at the very tail of the baby boom. You love that. You love that so much. But no, they're such a beautiful example for us. And we love spending time with them.
Yeah. Because they're fun.
They are a total kick, but they enjoy each other. They seem to revel in the time that they have together.
And you know what? It's funny. I'm not sure if I ever asked my mom why she decided to finally marry after
they've been together a while.
Staunchly against it.
Yeah.
They've been together for quite a while now. I think I'm gonna have to ask and see what she says. But I think she probably still will say one of those like, oh, I found like it was time to settle down. Her 70s. So my mom was a bit of the wild one.
Yeah.
I'm not much like that. I mean, I was married with the same man for 35 years. So not much wildness there. But I feel like starting this third chapter of our lives as an acknowledged team, Uh, it's actually really fucking scary. And I keep getting cold feet like every day. You know that.
I know. And I think you like the fact that I'll just hold your hand through it. I don't tell you it's all going to be okay. I don't tell you, oh, come on. Blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, all right. If you ever decide you don't want to do it, you just let me know.
We'll just have a really fab party.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's an hour. Well, you'll find out. No, listen. Okay, so we're going to do a couple of these because you guys have clamored for
Well,
talk
darling,
of the wedding.
that's not, I don't think I'm not sure that that's how it's going to work.
How's it going to work?
I think what we may have to do is that we will do our last session for the season next week.
Wow.
We will talk about like
The impending wedding.
the impending wedding,
And
as
then we
much
have
as
to.
we can say, and then we're actually going to have to go and get married.
All right, so one more before this is number 20. So lucky
Oh, so it'll be
21.
21, yes.
Lucky 21. My birthday is the 21st. So 21 has always been a
Plus two
lucky
plus
number.
1 is 3.
2 plus 1 is
Our
3.
favorite lucky
Right.
number.
Yeah. So also when I was in third grade, there were 6 rows in the classroom, and there were these cans at the front of the classroom numbered 1 through 6, and I was 6 years old. And I loved the fact that 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 21 was
Oh,
my birthday. And I was 6. Do you love all that? Isn't it? I'm a nerd. Anyway, we'll be back next week with the last episode of season 1. That's a crazy ass thing to say. Do you have any final words?
well, my final words are, Jeff, will you take us through the end of this?
Oh, right. Yeah. How do people get in touch with us? Should I do that
Yes,
thing?
I mean,
okay.
I think our elite party,
Cocktail party.
of devoted listeners probably know by now. And thank you so much for all your emails. I so want to answer every single one because there's so many really, really good ones. But we're very pressed for time at this
Yes.
point. Like
But
we
if
are
you wanna-
cleaning out
yes.
closets, we're sorting out clothes.
Yes.
We're really stressed.
Yes. So that hints the need for a little break in the action. However, if you want to sneak in some last minute wedding related questions, you can go to our website, 20goodsummers.com, the word 20 always spelled out. Okay. 20goodsummers.com. There's a contact form that goes straight to us. So you can contact us that way, or you can email us at 20goodsummers@gmail.com. Follow our antics. You don't want me to post that cribbage video? I think it's funny, but follow our antics at 20 Good Summers Pod on Instagram. I guess Threads, who cares? That's the deal. All right,
That's a nice
walk
way
us
of-
out of here. Here you go. She hates doing
I
this.
hate that. It's like I remember this one time where a journalist early on when I was like 17 or 18 was his last question to me in the interview was, what would you like said on your tombstone? And I was like, and I thought to myself, fuck you. And then I thought retrospectively, I was like, that would be a good
great
one.
on the tombstone.
But that is
What a
not what
lovely
that is not what
parting sentiment.
that is not what I'm
No,
leaving
that's
you
not
off
what you're
with.
leaving us with.
I'm leaving you off with, hey guys, we appreciate you all so much. And for now, it's a bye until next week.